Hey everyone, in this video, I'm going to go over some of the basic functionality of Animation Editor and one of the most common scenarios that I made this asset for. Let's start with running the editor utility. Upon opening it, a property actor should be added to your level, but if not, click this button here and the notification will let you know if it's been added or if it already exists. From here, let's create a level sequence and then let's open it up. So before I bought any animation packs, Mixamo is where I'd go for free animations as placeholders, but some of them would just be terrible when working with the Unreal Mannequin. So I have a folder here with some, and this one here is what we'll work on for this video. Opening it up, the animation has some glaring issues, but nothing we can't fix. The main things bugging me are the feet not being firmly on the ground, the fingers not making perfect fists, and towards the end, the head isn't looking straight. Also, it doesn't loop perfectly. But otherwise, the animation is pretty solid to work off of. So let's get to it. With our sequencer opened, I'm gonna drag in the animation to our level and add it to the sequencer. By default, control rig gets added, which we don't want. So we're gonna start with our first shortcut to remove it, which is Control-Shift-Delete. Before that shortcut works, we need to ensure that the widget has focus, which can be done by hovering the mouse over the widget, and we see the animation indicate that focus is active. Focus leaves anytime we click outside the widget, and when it does have focus, keyboard shortcuts will work. So Control-Shift-Delete deletes the current control rig layer, and then I'm going to do Control-Shift-Enter to bake it to control rig again, but it's going to automatically add the additive layers that we'll work with. From here, please assume that whenever I say to use a shortcut, that the widget does have focus. Okay, so if you notice, the character is back in their A pose, and so the animation we imported basically got reverted. There's a few ways we could go about getting the animation back. Also, this may not be the case for you. You may have the animation and its keys fully loaded up. And so if that's the case, still just keep watching because this might happen. So the first thing that I do if this is the case is I do Control-Shift-Delete to delete the rig layers. And then I do another shortcut, which is I for import, to import whatever animation we're going to work with. So we're working with this one here. And so I'm going to click it. I'm going to focus on the widget, and then I'm going to press I. So there's a few things that I want to point out. Sequencer can be a little bit buggy, but there's actually a few things going on that we're not seeing due to the engine bugs. So the first is that when we import an animation, the playback end is actually getting adjusted to fit our animation. By default, the sequencer typically places it like at a set point somewhere out here. So if you're working with just one animation, you then have to go drag this to either get it exactly at the end of the animation or a frame behind. It's just tedious, but this takes care of it for you. So notice that each time we click an asset, focus, press I, the playback gets updated. The next thing that's missing is the actual animation section on the timeline. If it's not showing up, there's a few ways to go about fixing it. The first and simplest is to just close the current sequence and then open it back up. Now, if we click and import, we should see that it updates accordingly. And again, if it doesn't, these are just visual bugs. Technically, this should be extending to the end, because if we play this, it loops correctly. It looks like it's getting cut off right here. The end is actually out here. So if we close this, reopen it again, it's actually extended out to there. So every time we import a new animation, this is actually updating along with the playback end. So I forgot, there actually is a simple keyboard shortcut to refresh the current level sequence. So if I click here, import, if you just hit F5, then it's going to refresh the level sequence. So yeah, this is how you can get this to update here. The last thing that happens whenever we import is the display rate right here actually gets updated. All right, so let's move on from import. Now that we have it, we can do Control-Shift-Enter, and we'll have our control rig set up on our animation ready to go. From here, let's start with correcting the feet. At some point, they're just like not staying stationary and kind of going crazy. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna make sure that they just stay in place so that we're really seeing a lot of the movement come from the sword swing and the upper body. From here, let's start with correcting the feet. I'm gonna do Control plus spacebar and type FC for feet correction. What it does is do a line trace on each keyframe to ensure that at least one foot is touching the ground, and then ensure that it's as low as possible. So scrubbing through, it doesn't plant both feet firmly because it detects that at least one foot is down, factoring in animations where the character may be stepping. Next, I'm gonna open key group and select legs, and we'll see that the keys to use populates with the controls that we're gonna modify. Although these are presets, you can totally modify any of them, and if you ever need to revert it, you can just hit the little arrow and they'll go back to defaults. From here, I'm going to use this delete button, which deletes all the keys from the controls below, all the way from the end to our specified key, which is 0 in this case. And it does so non-inclusively, which means the very first key is still going to be there. If we open this up and then just select this, we're going to see all the keys get deleted. So now if we play it, our feet are nice and firm on the ground. So this already looks a lot better and closer to something more usable. Next, we can fix the hands. If we get closer, we can see that they're pretty botched. So what we're going to do is fix these instantly so they look better. In the widget, we have poses, which, as you could guess, are preset poses that we can apply instantly to our character. Right now, we're on our first main layer. If we add a pose, it's only going to get applied our current keyframe, and as soon as it changes, it'll go back to how it was. So now we're going to work with the additive layers. So I'm pressing 1 on the keyboard, and now our section to key, this green highlight, moves down to the hands layer. Now, anything we change or edit is specifically modifying this layer. If we look through this dropdown, we can see a lot of options to choose from. By default, it's on hands open, and to apply it, we can just hit this plus button, and hovering over it will actually show us the keyboard shortcut that we can also apply it, which is P for pose. Now we have a keyframe added, and we can see that our character has their hands opened. It currently applies to both because the both bool is true. If we deselect it by pressing B, we'll see that the right hand gets selected. If we press M to disable mirror, then the left hand is selected. The same applies to feet controls and anything else that has a left or right. If we press play, which is spacebar, we can see that the character's hands are open for the whole animation. But let's change it to a holding animation for both hands, since this is technically a sword and shield animation. Before we do, we'll want to either get back to the first frame or erase the first frame and add a new one here. So to quickly snap to the beginning, we can do Alt left arrow and then press the minus button to remove the key. Or we can also do another type shortcut from where we're at and do -K1, which stands for remove key from the beginning. Technically 0 is before 1, but the keyboard has it at the end. So yeah, if you wanted to quickly add a key at the beginning or the end, you could type K1 or K0, or if you do KFL, which means keyframe first and last. So I'm gonna search for hold, then enable both, and press P. Okay, this is looking better, but I'd really like to see it with some weapons attached. So let's do a keyboard shortcut and type EQ for equipment, and we'll see a sword and shield spawn attached to our character. Now, it may not spawn at the hands for you if you're not using the default skeleton that my asset comes with. And that's okay, because you can easily do a quick adjustment so that it does work with yours. I'm gonna type EQ again to remove these. Let's click on this sword and shield icon, which is gonna open a window here, containing skeletons and equipment meshes. What the EQ shortcut does is spawn and attach each of these meshes at these bones or sockets. Now, if your mesh doesn't have the sockets, then you can easily open up both of the skeletons, the default and yours, and copy the sockets from mine into yours. Next time you run EQ, they should spawn attached. The other thing you could do is change the socket names to regular bone names, like hand_L and hand_R. Now when we run EQ, they'll spawn on any skeleton. It's not perfect, but if you didn't want to deal with opening up different windows and anything like that, you can totally do it this way as well. You can then select both of them and then just adjust. Having the weapons attached gives a much better sense of how it's looking and what needs work. I would say it's about 90% there. So the last things I want to fix are the sword strike should be a little bit lower, the right knee shouldn't be so firmly straight during the strike, the head should be looking forward, and towards the end of the attack, the sword actually ends up cutting right through the neck, which I'm pretty sure none of us want. Scrubbing through, I would say everything up to this point looks good for the sword swing. It just needs to be lower. So let's start with the upper arm. So I'm going to click through until I get there. Let's make sure to disable both so that we are only modifying the right arm for now. From here, I'm going to add a new key, which acts as our default point. I'm going to scrub forward a tiny bit. And from here, I know that I want to rotate the arm downward, which in my experience is using the Z rotation. And so the shortcut to enable it is V on your keyboard or this button here. I don't think there's a way for me to update the gizmo through blueprints, but if you were to switch to rotation mode, you can kind of better visualize it. Otherwise, it just takes getting used to. So once the rotation is enabled, if you use your mouse wheel while hovered over the widget, you can adjust rotations just like that. To stop the mouse wheel from adjusting the rotations, just make sure you have none enabled. As I mentioned earlier, I like to move the mouse towards the top, so I'm not scrolling and rotating. You can still hold shift and scrub through like that. Just be careful, because if you let go of shift, you're going to start going back to rotating from wherever you let go. You can also use your arrow keys by pressing caps lock to toggle on and off the lock icon here. This makes it so that your arrow keys left and right will no longer scrub through the timeline and instead rotate whatever axis you have in focus. If no axes are focused and the lock is enabled, the arrow keys will then adjust the location of the controls where you can go left, right, forward, and backward. And if you toggle Z, the up and down arrows will actually move up and down instead of forward and back. Control will adjust by 10 and Shift does the inverse. So from here, I'm just going to make my way to rotating downward, and since this is a tutorial focused more on functionality instead of getting everything perfect, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. Just getting the sword to strike further down is good enough. Honestly, that looks a lot better. And if we actually play through the entire animation, by adjusting the arm the way we have, we've solved the problem of it going through their neck. Granted, it goes through the body a little bit, so if we wanted to, we can actually adjust it just a little bit. Fixing the head will consist of the same thing, so I'll quickly speed through that, adding keys at the points to correct the head so it's looking forward. Now, the first and last frames of most animations are typically the same, as most animations should seamlessly loop or go in and out of each other. So what I'm going to do is copy the very first frame, because as we get towards the end of this head animation, it starts to look off. But at the beginning, it looks decent. And if you notice, the rest of the body looks exactly the same. So in theory, just by copying the first towards the end, that should fix it. So I'm going to open the typer and do CFL, copy first to last. And let's see, right about here, the head just looks like it's already looking wrong. So we'll just do a few more adjustments. That was a lot better. A quick note on another neat feature. I don't know about any of you, but I've definitely spent time working on animations just to spend about an hour or so wondering to myself, are any of the changes I made actually improving anything from the original? Well, you can actually just straight up test it out by disabling additive layers using the 0 key on your number pad. I'll add more keys to enable this in case anyone's working off a smaller keyboard. But yeah, you could quickly toggle each layer to see if the changes you made look good or not. So here's how it looks before our changes for the head, and here's after. And instead of having to use the number keys to navigate between each of the layers, if you hold shift and use the arrow keys up and down, you can actually just navigate like that. And so here you could easily disable, and here's how it looks before. We can also see how our changes look with the hands, as well as the upper arm. We see it's going back to slicing our little neck. And just like that, we can enable everything back. Alright, so really the last thing we need to fix is just the leg popping out. We don't want that to just be going real straight. At least for myself, I don't like when animations have that. It always just makes me kind of cringe a little bit. So this will actually be a very easy fix. I'm going to do body controller, and from here, I'm going to put caps lock, and this is typically solved because the body is going too far from wherever the foot is. So this will be very easy to just push it back a little bit. See, there we go. Yep, and there we go. That's a lot better, I would say. From there, if you really wanted to, you could adjust the feet to push it in a little closer. I don't necessarily like how much of a horse stance this is in. So if I was really working on this, I'd probably just nudge the feet inwards a little bit and then make them stand a little bit taller. Now we're just about done. I would say the last thing we need to check is that the first frame matches the last frame. So the main issue is the last frame of the original layer never matched perfectly with the beginning in the first place. It's not enough just to copy the very first key towards the end. The reason is because all of the keys leading up to the last one are still pointing towards the original location. So instead, I'm gonna delete, let's say maybe key 55 all the way to the end. So I'm gonna put the specific key here as 55. And then I'm gonna make sure we select the default group so it's all our keys. And then I wanna delete from the end up to key 55. So let's see how it looks. And if we notice, these last few frames, practically no motion is done. So from here, I'm gonna do CFL, but now the arm is stuck inside. And the reason is because we need to copy the first to last on our upper arm layer. So I'm gonna navigate to it, do CFL, and that looks good. Let's check, let's snap to the very beginning. Yep, everything looks good. The head looks slightly off, so we technically can go to the head. Let's do CFL there. There we go. Everything is perfectly in sync. Let's watch it. And there we go. Let's do EQ. All right, the arm is sticking through the head again. Let's actually adjust the lower arm layer. Make sure we disable both. Let's toggle mirror. All right, and let's say from right here, it looks good. Let's go back a little bit more. I'm gonna hit plus, go forward. And let's start rotating this. No, not that one. That looks good. Let's disable it, see how it looks. All right, but now make sure it's not gonna match. So let's do CFL. And there we go. Now it's no longer sticking through his head, her head. And we could adjust a little bit more. And there we go. That looks a lot better. Now, just for the last step, we're going to export. So let's just pick some random empty spot and let's type AE. Now, if we open it up, this is our entire animation that we just corrected, all right here. Now, I know the video seems a little bit long, but to be fair, I'm explaining everything. Realistically, if I was just doing this myself, that probably would have taken me 5 minutes tops. But yeah, I hope you all found this helpful. I tried to go over just about everything that I could think of. But yeah, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'll see you in the next one. Lates.